Good morning. I'm going to introduce our speaker today. This is Michael Shebek. He is a Ball State graduate and a former standout pitcher for the school's baseball team. Leveraging the skills and discipline that he learned at Ball State, he went on to become the CEO of multiple U.S.-based companies, including Automatic Pool Covers Incorporated and Cover Care LLC. Then in 2000, he acquired Automatic Pool Covers and spearheaded a transformative strategic change that resulted in a remarkable 30-fold revenue increase over the next 25 years. And this also revolutionized the entire industry in the process. Mr. Shebek's name may sound familiar to you, and I know it does to some of my students who are athletes, but if you've attended a Ball State baseball game at Shebek Stadium this spring, that stadium was named in honor of he and his wife's recent generous gift to the university. And I know we are all looking forward to his generous and valuable insights. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Dixon. So a few words before we get started. I think there's a few things to point out here right out of the gates. Mike is the 8th and final speaker in our entrepreneurial experience and lessons in leadership speaker series. I say this pretty much every time, but you're in for a treat because Mike has a really unique perspective on leadership, on how do you drive business? How do you drive growth? And it's funny because when I asked him to write a bio, he struggled with it a little bit, I think because he's so humble. I think that's why he struggled with it. So we had to make him, say what he's done a little bit. So I appreciate challenging you and you allowing me to challenge you on that. So another thing I want to point out is the importance of networking. And I know we say this often, but the only reason I know Mike is because of my good friend Rich Maloney, the baseball coach in the back, introduced us several years ago. And the funny thing is, we just always would talk about baseball at the baseball games, but we never really talked much about business until this, which has been great for me. So thank you, Mike, for coming, and we'll go ahead and get started. So can you share your story, Mike, and how did you start your business?
Okay, can you hear me okay? Thank you guys for being here, first off. It says a lot about what you want to get to learn about in business and maybe starting your own business some point. So for me, I went to Ball State to be in the AV area. I love video, and when I flunked out of the AV class, TCOM, telecommunications, because of baseball, I had to regroup. And so, humbly, I graduated with a general studies degree. And what brought me out of Ball State was my family business. My father had a fall. My mom says, "Hey, I need you to come into the business and help us out. We're not sure how good he's going to be." So I jumped into business immediately with just a great opportunity that I had here at Ball State to learn. Family businesses are very hard. And in 1997, about 8-9 years after, it was 1997, I had the privilege of being fired by my mother. And if you can think about that, it's hard enough to get fired, and hopefully you'll all be fired at one point and you'll regroup. But I was fired, and I had to figure out what my first business was going to be, and so I complemented my parents' business with a business that you'll hear about called Cover Care Inc., not the same as Cover Care LLC. And that was a pool cover service business that I had been working on learning pool cover service for years. So I came out, worked in a truck, learned the business, and complemented my parents' business and became their second biggest customer in 2 years after I started my business. So that's essentially how I started my business journey, I guess.
So any other failures, setbacks? What are some of the greatest ones you've encountered besides being fired by your mom, which is, that's a pretty interesting resume item there. And how did you handle those?
So, to be honest, there have not been a lot of setbacks. We'll talk about how my philosophy is. I really overanalyze a lot. But the setbacks that we have had more recently, really, for one, we had about $20 million of excess inventory in our business. And so a setback was we had no cash. You know, good businesses go down if they don't have financial ownership. If you don't understand the finances, your business is going to fail, even if it's successful. So with that setback, truly for about 6 months, I walked the warehouse every single day. When something came in, I'm like, what's that for? And found that we had just received a year's worth of inventory, and we already had a year and a half's worth of inventory. So we had some processes that we had to figure out, and bringing my team together and saying, let's get this process figured out. And so just really knowing the business inside and out helped me understand what needed to be done. And then having my team create that process was I guess, one of the most recent setbacks that I've had.
And you really want to have an ear for that financial literacy that Mike's talking about. I know we pound it in you often. You don't have to be a financial expert. You don't have to be an accountant. You don't have to be a finance person. But you need to understand financially how the business works, and you need to have some expertise on your team who can translate to you. It's really important.
That is, I'll reiterate that. Everyone has a great idea, right? If you see a problem in the world, you want to solve it, you have to do it, but you have to make money. Otherwise, you have to, unless it's a not-for-profit. I can see over there in the corner. Unless it's a not-for-profit where you have to request funding, you're asking people to give you money. But keep that in mind. You really have to look at your passion for your business, but the finances is got to be there. They got to be at the top of your list. And I'll say one more thing. Whenever we have our meetings, and I'll say, this is what we have to do, but there's an empty chair right here, and that's the business. And even though I want us to do this business says, I don't want you to do that. You're going to run out of money. So if you think about the business being that extra chair at your table, it's a great way to kind of think about in third person. We're working for this guy. I work for that empty chair business, which is called automatic pool covers.
I love that perspective. Speaking of details, the class knows this, I know, but we had you take the entrepreneurial leadership instrument, which I created, and your preferred style was scientist. So in the details, want to really test things before you go to market, want to make sure things are really well done. I guess the first question is, how well do you think that describes you? How would you interact with those results?
Sure, and I didn't know you created that. So if you think of a dartboard and you have the 1 to 20 and then the 100 and then that little green, me being a scientist is the dead center. I mean, that's exactly who I am. I analyze things, and you're all familiar with scientists in that. That is my business style, and it's dead on.
So that's your lens, and we all come into anything we do, leadership, a venture, a project, community engagement, whatever it is, family, we all come in with a lens. And so how do you think you've been able to complement yourself with people who don't have your lens, putting people around you that have different talents, different perspectives?
Because of this rapid growth that we had, we went from 3 million to 100 million in just no time, and beyond our wildest dreams of revenue. So the folks that you have with you early on have got to be really loyal and true to you, and vice versa. You have to be to them as well. So as we grew our business, we had very loyal people. As you get bigger, there are different parameters of management that come into play. That's where, is this kicking in and out? Is this kicking in and out? No, you're good. Okay. That we need to get better people in certain areas. So I picked up a CFO of the Year of Indiana, and I reached out to him. I taught his son baseball, and I said, hey, clearly you must know a CFO that can come in and help our business. And he said, well, I'm about to take a job with a public company. How about I just come work for you instead? Because he knew of our culture. So really who you are as an entrepreneur is got to be the same person at business as it is away from business. And so he's been with us 10 years, and he's complemented the weaknesses that I have in the financial part.
So speaking of culture, before we get to culture, why don't you talk about this photo a little bit? I mean, that's one of your pool covers. Anything you want to point out or?
Yeah, this is essentially what our business is. We have two businesses. Automatic Pool Covers, which is a manufacturer of automatic pool covers, and we sell them mostly in the United States, but also around the world in Israel, New Zealand. But, you know, we've sold this many covers, maybe 150 outside of the U.S., very few. What this shows is that the cover is a safety cover. It rolls up underneath this deck. So for a homeowner, it's invisible. But when the cover is closed, either with a key or with a touchpad, that it saves a lot of different things. It keeps children from getting into the water and drowning. It's the #1 cause of death for kids under 5 is drowning. So with the pool cover closed, it eliminates that. It saves, let's say, this particular homeowner about $3,000 of gas heating of the pool per year. And it also saves about 15,000 gallons of evaporation. So if you think a pool is one of the most expensive items you're going to buy for a house, if you can save $3,000 a year on heating, that means if you don't put a pool cover in, you're going to spend $3,000 of heating a year. And just the safety factor alone is what that is. But so this is a pretty high-end pool and a high-end house of one of our customers in Cleveland.
Okay, so the next one here is kind of your places you do business, your distribution.
Yeah, and I might take just a few minutes on this. Let me take a peek at it from a distance here if I can. Do you mind?
Yep.
So in 2000, I'm going to go over a quick history of our business. I bought the company in 2000, and then in 2003, we were only Indiana. And all we did was install pool covers. That was it. We didn't make them. We brought pool covers in from Utah. We worked with pool builders and installed them on pool builders' pools, essentially, and then serviced them. In 2003, I thought, 2 years after I bought the business, a service business, I'm like, we can do this. Let's make our own system. And we did in 2003. From 2003 until 2014, we grew about 8% per year, roughly. And that was installing in Indiana and then selling to everywhere else in the country, hoping someone would install it, the pool cover for the pool builder. Well, that didn't work so well. We were growing at 8%. And I had this is the beauty of being fired from my parents' business. I learned that because I also started making some repair parts. If I can make a replacement cover in Indianapolis and install it same day, I'll clean up. And I did. I had about a 98% bid to close rate, which is phenomenal. Typically 25 to 30% is good. So I thought, let's take what we do in Indianapolis and install the pool covers in Indianapolis and start a national pool cover installation company. And what we did was we started in Cincinnati, and that's why it's colored yellow. And we now have operations and employees in all of these yellow states. The white ones are the ones that we do not. So in 2014, I think we had 20 employees that were installing and servicing. Now it's about 300, 250 to 300. None of that is, none of those are franchises. They're all employees. And as an owner, you care about all of your people. And that's just the philosophy I had, is I didn't want to franchise the business. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that level of growth is what that represents.
Awesome. So now we're going to shift to culture a little bit. And I'm going to shift this so you can see. And you were telling me about the puzzle before we started, and so I want you to just walk through how you build a positive culture, how you keep people engaged in the business, how you make their role valuable, help them understand that.
I have a mentor that came to me and said, "Can every single person in your company tell you what your top 3 goals are?" And I said, I can't do that. I don't know what those are. So we came up with one with 3 goals, and that was, simply increase sales as a business. The second was to be lean, or to be efficient. And the third was employee enjoyment. And the goal was employees leave the day after work better than when they walked in. So it's a place of joy for people to show up. So my assistant and I created this idea of a puzzle, and that was, I came up with 23 things that drove me crazy about the business. And each one of these puzzle pieces above me was a goal that we came up with, that if we accomplished it, there would be a prize that went along with it. And in the 20 years that I've owned the business, this particular item has been recognized by all of our employees as the best thing our company has ever done. It's a unique way to motivate people, to give them ownership. So if you look at the top left, the first one says, each employee read a business book. So that's employee enjoyment. They may not know it, but they'll at least get that idea of what a business is. The second one after that was, have you guys heard of We Are the World? So employee enjoyment, number 3, we had every single employee sing one verse of that song, and we put it all together, and everyone was embarrassed to do it, 100%. I was in there. I'm embarrassed. I can't sing, right? We are the world. So when we got it done, we put it together as a video, and there were cheers. It was standing ovation for every single person to be embarrassed. And then when the final product was done, number 3, employee enjoyment. Some of the other ones you'll see are back orders, no back orders. And I'll give a quick history. We had a puzzle for 6-7 years before we accomplished it. The first year, we wanted no back orders on products for 7 days, and we didn't get it. And so the next year, we went to no back orders for 5 days, and we didn't get it. And so what do you think what should we do for the next year? No back orders for how many days? I went to 3 weeks, not 3 days, 3 weeks. And we got a little bit of a head start. And the year that we accomplished it was the year that we got 3 weeks. We hadn't done 7 days. We hadn't even done 5 days for a whole year. But setting that expectation early was rewarding. So every employee got $500 once we accomplished, and I'll go real quick, once we accomplish any of these puzzle pieces, there was one person that measured it within the company to make sure we accomplished it. And then the second person was the one who would get in front of everyone like this and say, here's what our accomplishment was. So we had a walking group. We were on a trail in Westfield, Indiana. We had a walking group that had 7 people every week. That's it, 7 people. Oh, that's fun. So I created a puzzle for employee enjoyment, and we want to have 30 people 4 weeks in a row or 3 weeks in a row, and we got it. All of a sudden, 40 people got up, walked around, side by side. I didn't know you were the speed skating champ of Illinois as they're walking around. Phenomenal. Once we accomplished that goal, somebody would stand up and they'd say, okay, I was here to measure 30 people in a walking group, and we got it. And I would moderate and say, well, was there anything you learned? No, that's it. And I learned that person is really not proactive, was not looking for the details yet, and needed some more mentoring. Yet when we needed to make 100 vinyls over 2 days, I had our production supervisor from Vinyl who got up and said, we accomplished 100 vinyls. We made 100 vinyls 2 days in a row, but I'm not up here to talk about it. He goes, all my team, come up here with me. Same thing. Each one's explaining how they accomplished it. He brings up everyone. You not see any of these guys here, but this is Pedro, this is Alex, and he went through every individual person and explained who they are. That's how you get out of your shell and you can be a leader even though you don't own the company. And I mentored him, now he owns his own car business. I said, this is a great day for you and a hard day for me, but it's what you want, and that's what I wanted for him. So at the end of the day, we accomplished all of these after 5 or 6 years, and once the last piece, all pieces removed, everyone got a gift card for $1,020.19. And $20.19 is because we accomplished it in 2019. Make it memorable. $1,000 or $1,020.19 is a little bit of a twist. Memorable. That's what that.
That's really cool. So think about scientist, details. I mean, it makes sense. That's the way he leads. And that's good because your best chance of success is your natural talent. Like, lead with that and empower other people to lead with their natural talent. So it's a perfect example of how you're best if you're just you. So you talked about a mentor who challenges you on the goals. Could you talk a little bit more about the importance of networks, support systems, those types of people and the impact they have on your life and your business?
I did have a mentor, Brian McLaughlin. He was a CEO of a CNC machining company. And I said, look, we're going to start manufacturing our own system. Will you help me? He goes, absolutely. You know, I just happened to know him. My cousin was dating his daughter. And so he comes in and helps me figure out how we're going to do this, how we're going to make our own system. And forever grateful for him. After that, you run into some hard times. I guess I should have answered that question different earlier. I was meeting with, he's like, how are things going? It's been 5 years. I go, man, it's really tough. It's really, really hard, you know, and I'm complaining about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things. And his response was, I'll never forget it, well, the good news is you're in a position to do something about it. And I think that's the same for all of you guys out here. If you're like, well, I'm just a kind of an average student, or, you know, I'm kind of into this. The good news is that you have the ability to do whatever you want. You're in the position to do that because it's yourself. So if you think about that, it changes the focus away from the business and focuses back on you as the one that can own that. So the one thing I wish I'm an introvert, is that I would highly recommend reaching out to anyone that you could see as a mentor. You know, and my one saying is, don't say no for the other guy. I mean, if every one of you said, hey, would you help me out? You know, I'd be, wow, that's awesome. I would love to, I'm not sure I could accomplish everyone, but don't say, oh, this person's too busy. This person won't, they're not. Don't say no for the other guy. Let them say no for you. And if they say yes, then you're in a great position.
It's good advice right there. Talk about your values and how that impacts your business. What role does that play on your business? And what do you see, and maybe you have this stated, but what do you see as the purpose or the mission of the business?
Yeah, you have to be the same person as an entrepreneur as you are as an individual. So I'm not perfect, but I do try to keep my values, my personal values, as high as I can, and then I never have to apologize for anything at work or away from work. So, be the best person that you can be, and you know what that means, right? You know when you're doing something that you probably shouldn't. It's okay to not cut corners. It's okay. And if it takes longer to get to that location or whatever your goal is, that's okay. But values are incredibly important, because when you grow a business, all of a sudden you start getting into some legal issues. And if you don't do the right thing, boy, they will come and catch up with you. So just do the right thing always. And that's a saying that we've all heard, right? Just do the right thing. But really, if you think there's two paths you can go by, one's cutting a corner and one is not, always take the right path. You'll never regret it.
So what kind of an impact would you hope that your business would have on your communities? And you're a national business, so your communities could be the pool industry, your employee community, your team, your local community that you're based out of. What kind of an impact would you hope the business would have?
The business saves lives. We have documentation of a car driving across one of our pool covers. The woman was found the next morning down at the bottom of a hill. It saved her life. It saved several people's lives. But my philosophy has been take care of the people, our employees. So we are a safety business. All of our technicians are CPR certified. I went through my CPR certification. It's a lifetime skill, even after you leave the business. We offer free swim lessons to any employee or their family, because we want people to not dislike the company or the product that the pool that their product goes on. And I think we've been successful enough to part of the stadium naming is for our team as well to say, look, do good. If you are successful, do good for other people as well. And I've had this, I guess from a charitable standpoint, do you give a little bit every single year, or do you kind of hold off and do something a little bit bigger every several years? And that's a challenge that I've kind of run into, that part of the stadium reconstruction that we're going through is a big deal. And if we hadn't saved and maybe not done as much charitable work throughout the last 10 years or so, it leads up to some sort of a leadership opportunity for the school and the baseball players and the baseball stadium. So we've got a great core of people that believes in what we do and the mission that we save lives.
So this has been an interesting question for me, and I think for Dr. Dixon too, to ask everyone this year. And I think it's challenged us a little bit, but so I'm curious to see what you say. But how do you manage, or do you, work-life integration? Like, how do you balance things?
Yeah, I would give myself maybe a C- on work-life balance. Yeah, and I'm at a point now. I'm in my late 50s where you start thinking about. Well, and I'll give you this example. So on our baseball team, I think over the 4 years, you have about 30 players on the team. pitcher, catcher, 4 infielders, 3 outfielders. And starting in 2020, we lost a catcher, first baseman, right fielder, center fielder, and another catcher. All these guys in their 50s all passed away. So now you think, all right, they're younger than me. These guys are younger than me now. So where is that work-life balance? The challenge is love my family to death, like love them more than anything. But being an entrepreneur gives you the opportunity to influence hundreds of, I wouldn't be here if not for the business. And so it is a balance. It is quite a challenge. I would say focus on your family a little bit more than I did. At least taking time off. I did not take enough time off. I'm still working 60 plus hours a week, 60 to 70. And I see some other folks that are, I compare myself to others. I guess that's part of the scientist, comparing. And I just wish I had done that a little bit more, yeah.
That's a familiar answer, so you're not alone. Looking at the future, where do you see your business in, say, 5 years, 10 years? What are your goals? You've accomplished a lot, but people that are wired like this, like us, you want more. So
what's amazing is without an official sales staff, we went from 2 million to 2.5 million to 100 million without really a sales staff. So we just hired a true first national sales manager, Ball State grad. We have a compliance, all those states that you saw up there. If you saw the stack of taxes that I have to file, it's over 1,500 pages, signing about 200 times. So our compliance officer is a Ball State grad. Our accounts receivable is a Ball State grad. So don't think that what you don't do is important, and it is very important. There is a place and a role for you in every position. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you can treat your part of the business as entrepreneurial. I see our business doubling. From 2003 until 2021, we doubled our business every 4 years. That's about 20+%, 25% growth every year. I expect us to, with this new sales force, to double the size. And our small business that I started just myself in 2000 or 1997, that little service business, 80,000 in revenue, is now the largest cover installation company by far in the United States. 3 times as big as 2 or 3 times bigger than anyone else. And I think we'll continue to do that with growth in Canada, with growth in Mexico and other markets to install pool covers and save people's lives in other parts of the country.
So we were, in preparation for this, we were talking about how some of your competitors are big players, publicly traded companies. And I think sometimes, especially if you're newer to the entrepreneurship world, you think, I could never compete with big players. And I guess I've seen the industries that I work with, people compete. I have family-owned small businesses, $1.5 million, $2 million in sales, competing directly with like a Home Depot or a Lowe's in their town. So you can do it. What are some ways that you differentiate yourself and you make yourself stand out to the customer? Because if you enter with price, that's not really your best entry against the big dogs.
So here's something you should write down. It's one of my favorite books. It's called Creating Competitive Advantage by Janie Smith. And I've given out hundreds of these books. It's a way that your business should differentiate from any others. What does your business do that no one else does? In every book that I've given out, I've said, this is also for you. So if I'm going to hire somebody today in this group, how do you differentiate yourself from this person? How do you differentiate yourself from this person? How do you, if you all have the same skills and your resume looks the same, how do you differentiate yourself? And that's going to be something that you're going to, when you look for that first job or you're going to switch jobs, you got to find a way to stand out. So this book, I think, is helpful. The last 10 pages are blank. Write as much as you can on there. Remind me of the question again.
So from a business standpoint, I'll buy you a little time here, but from a business standpoint, how do you make yourself stand out against very large, formidable competition? That was the question. So I just want to say, some of you are in the leadership class. Each one of you is wonderfully created, uniquely you. You have something to offer. You just have to find it and just go be you and do it. Be all in. I think that's really important, what Mike said. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so the niche that we found was creating the national installation company. That's what separated us. We do go up against two public companies that one of their products they sell is automatic pool covers, but they don't install it. All they do is resell it. And we knew they couldn't, a public company like this wouldn't want labor and installation. And I'm like, well, we do this well, so let's try it. And the beauty was the service business bought all of its product from our manufacturing business. And that propelled our manufacturing business from number 3 in the U.S. to essentially almost tied with a company that had been around 40 years longer than us. So finding that niche or something that is different that they can't do. So you have to know, and maybe the scientist in me says, what can't they do, and can we do this? And then finding out, what if we give this a shot? Try it, see if it works, and then just scale it.
Yeah, and if you think back to some of the creative things we've talked about, we always ask the question, how might the customer, how might you solve their problems? But then the next question is, how might we help this customer solve their problems? So in closing, kind of a two-pronged question here. What's one piece of advice, first of all, that you'd give to aspiring entrepreneurs? Like, what's the one thing that you would say, I really want you to leave with this? Well, you've already said several, but I'm going to stretch you for one more thing.
Things were different when I went to school than they are now. Your technology level is so much greater. The one thing that stands the test of time is you as an individual, your curiosity. I think my biggest strength is being curious. And technology and all these other things that will help you get where you want to go quicker. I think being curious and looking for, this is something I have a hard time turning off, and that is I try to fix everything. If there is a problem, there's a solution, and it's a business, whatever it is. And you can think about any of these things, how these chairs stack up more quickly. Oh, what if we had this? It's a curse as much as it is a blessing, because it's hard to turn off sometimes, and you're always trying to fix things and create, something. So be curious. The number one thing you could do, in my opinion, is just to be curious about seeing things around you. And every bit of what you see in this room was a business. There's an entrepreneur that did the lights, that did the white, that did the light bulb, that did the silver around it, the wire, the wirings. There's a company that did all the wiring. There's a company that did all of the design of this room, that laid the floor down, that decided what type of floor is going to be perfect and long-lasting. And it squeaks a little bit. Is there a way to fix the squeak without it having to tear the whole thing out? And the chairs, and somebody designed the chairs. And somebody designed this table up here, and somebody designed this microphone and this screen. There are so many businesses, and every one of them, it has an opportunity to be improved on. Every one of them. And you have the opportunity to do that. All you got to do is think about it, what that next thing could be. And, get some mentors around you and just talk to some people and say, what do you think? And go for it.
You're talking my language now. I hope you have an ear for that, because when you mentioned the word curiosity, I'm like, yes, just be curious and just want to always have a hunger to make things better for your people, your customer, your family, your life, whatever. One last question, then the second half of that is aspiring leaders. And I would view every one of you as an aspiring leader. Leadership is not a position. What kind of advice, what would be the one key takeaway you would hope they would get from a leadership standpoint?
I think I'm a perfect example of that. You know, I felt like when I knew a question, something like this would come up, I thought about walking to the far back with the microphone, and probably I should. And I'm going to. Why not? I might mess up the computer. I thought if I was in this class, I'm going to show you where I would have sat and how much attention I might have been giving. I'd give it a little bit, but I would have sat, I'm going to sit next to you, all right? I would have sat back here, and I just would have been a little bit interested, not quite interested, but I can tell you, I was absolutely curious about what was going on. And it started with one class I had here, and it was a philosophy class, I think, and they said, animals don't have emotions. They don't show you when they're happy or sad. And I'm like, this person's never had a dog or a cat. Love them and lick them. And so when you're curious like that, I think it gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want. And whatever that is, and don't think it has to be industrial or anything else. This can be so special for what you want. And I really encourage you to just find something you enjoy doing, because if not, you're just working. And don't think you have to be an entrepreneur immediately out of school. Work for a while, get to know the business, get to know how things go, and then, wow, what if we did this? So,
okay.
Thanks for letting me sit next to you.
So that's good. That's a good transition to Q&A. So, questions? You're next.
I always have questions. But something you mentioned with the staying curious and analyzing things, and I noticed that's something that's really stuck out as one of your talents. What's something that you would consider one of your weaknesses that you've really had to work on, and how did you go about that?
My weakness is accountability. I don't have to think twice about that. I'm not good at accountability, so I'll delegate things, I'll have these ideas, and then I just kind of I'm on to the next thing. So I'm getting better at accountable, and I guess when a frustration level, pops up, and you create this kind of a game, the puzzle game that holds people accountable for you. So that was my way of getting around being, why didn't you get this done? I find accountability to be more confrontational, and I need to get better at just being more of a leader instead of having that perception that it's confrontational.
Hi, thank you so much for your time here today. We really appreciate it. Going back to the puzzle pieces, that's genius. Like, that's not only, I have a couple questions surrounding that, because it's not only increasing efficiency, it's increasing profit too, but it's also like increasing employee enjoyment. So you're hitting all the spheres of what needs to be done. But what was the inspiration for that? Like, did you just come up with that one day, or was that like a business model somebody else used and you were inspired by that? What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, good question. I'm really proud of that. It does accomplish like so many different check marks when you set how much, what the goal is, and then what the prize is going to be. It, like if we don't do back orders, then we save $100,000 worth of immediate shipping or whatever that was. So then we go, all right, well, let's give $25,000 of it back. And the award and the benefit of that was people didn't know what was coming. We gave trips for 2 anywhere in the United States because we knew the value of that. And then once that goal was accomplished, we never had to worry about it again. It was just part of it. Although we did once, and I'll say that for after this. If I'm creative, I almost I like to think about doing things completely different. So if we want to get something accomplished, what's a different way we could do that than what's been done before? And that puzzle piece was actually a big 5 by 12 piece of shipping cardboard. And like, let's just cut that up into pieces to make it actually physical. And we've talked about other things too. We've tried to create another way to do it. And it's been 5 years since we did that. COVID really put the brakes on it. But we are going to kick that off for 2025, which will be for the 26th season. Super excited. We decided that yesterday, by the way. So
That's really cool. Sorry, the second question, I just have one more, was how did you, like, if you had any employees that were, you know, cynical about that or like against that, you know, because there's always going to be employees, unfortunately, that, you know, are unsure about leadership or they're unsure about the way that they're being guided. You know, how did you deal with that and how did you still encourage them to participate?
So some people come out of their shell, but one more thing about that puzzle, 100%, as we set this up, every single person in the business could point at one of those squares and say, I was involved in that. Everyone. So you got 100% involvement. Not everyone is going to be a leader. And that's one thing I've come to realize is we have a service technician that trained me back in 1980. He's still with us. He doesn't want to be a manager. He just loves what he does. He's a craftsman. You don't want to make a painter, somebody that's a beautiful painter, a manager of other people and give up painting. So knowing that sometimes not everyone is meant to be a leader, but everyone can be, even in your own role within a single business. You could be an entrepreneur like Alex was in our vinyl shop. He brought all of his folks up, and now he had enough to move on and start his own business.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you. This was one of the best speakers to come out here so far. So definitely was a treat, Rob. But I wanted to ask you, because you were talking about how you would give yourself a C- when it came down to your work-life balance. And I know, like with any entrepreneur, of course, it's kind of more of a sacrifice you're making, right? To, like you said, you wouldn't be here without the business, right? So what is the way you, like, how do you stay resilient with that, you know, that life decision and choice? Because of course you're gonna have to make sacrifices no matter what, you know, good or bad, trade-offs, really. So like, how do you stay resilient every day? And then I'm also really just curious a little more about, you know, leadership as well. Like, how do you motivate or find those leaders in the team when you can't find them, when there aren't the right candidate, really?
Sure. The bigger you get, the harder it is to find leaders because you don't interact with them. We have 50 employees in California that I just don't see frequently. The hard part about the family life balance is it's not so much me, it's my wife. And I mean that she is the one that is the balance, the family part of that is the one that is suffering. And not that I'm just the greatest husband in the world, but if we're not together, if we don't see each other, that's the issue. So imagine being with your best friends and working all the time and never seeing your best friends. You kind of grow a little bit apart. And my wife and I are we're great, 100%, just to be clear. But when you spend so much time over here, you kind of forget about your family life over here. And I'm working through that myself, to be honest, to try to spend more time and more quality time specifically.
And
Thank you.
we've heard that struggle a few times in this room, haven't we? Questions? Over here, come on. We need this side of the room. You surely have some questions. Will? No? All right.
We'll get Will to ask a question. I don't know.
Hey, so my question is just pertaining to the rapid growth that you've had. Your growth from about 2.5 to like $100 million is completely different from what I've heard in the past. So how did you kind of navigate that and maneuver around it?
How do we navigate the growth of 30 plus X growth? You just go through it, and your core values of not cutting corners is a big part of that. But also, I wrote this little book of this cover care playbook. We called it Tidal Wave. So, we want to take over, like Project Tidal Wave. We didn't know what we were going to do yet, but we wanted to, it was going to be called Project Tsunami. but that has kind of a negative, depth. So tidal wave is was the project. How do we do this so that if it works in one location, then we can have 2, 3, 4 locations, 24 locations, 50. And so we kind of looked at the end in mind. So in 2013, the year before we kicked this off, we had a 12-foot wide by 4-foot wide org chart that had in-house attorneys, that had all this stuff, that this is what it could look like. It might be 1,000 employees. And then we start our first location and it's one more employee. But we had this whole thing kind of just planned out with a good COO operations person. And it worked. I mean, it worked. It was surprising, but looking with the end in mind, as well as the path in between today and getting there is what we did.
Questions?
Like, I know you said you worked for Cover Care LLC and your incorporated one you have now. Like, over all that time, like your 30 years in business, what would you say your biggest mistake was, and how did you like recover from it?
Well, it wasn't a mistake until we got sued. One of the things that, I started Cover Care Inc. That was my one business, one person, just me, and I was doing service and installation in essentially Indiana. So let's start Cover Care with a new business, Cover Care LLC, and we'll do it all across the country. Well, little did I know that there is a Cover Care business, little tiny business in California with the same name. So if you go back, if you looked at that map, California was a slightly different color. We had to rename that Pool Safe and settle a lawsuit over us trying to steal their name. And California is a little bit of a dirty market. I'll just say it. It is a dirty market. We have more accidents there, more stolen tools there than every other state combined. So it's a different world. So my biggest mistake was assuming that this Cover Care LLC business and setting it all up would be just great. And then we go, wait, there's one little business in a suburb outside of Los Angeles that has the same name. And fine, just had to start another business in order to bypass that. And so I'll give you a couple of things real quick. The holding company, this is the creative part, that you can do whatever you want. That's the one thing, whatever you want. So when we have these two companies, Automatic Pool Covers and Cover Care LLC, they go, well, you need a holding company to own those two businesses, right? And so the business that we decided was called Soul, S-O-U-L, Provider. And the U, or the O, is a heart, and it's because, it's part of the employee enjoyment and so forth. But our business address is Suite 125. And Soul Provider is a song that my wife and I danced to on December the 5th. So our business is called Soul Provider, and the suite is the date of our anniversary. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be Suite 100. It doesn't have to be Suite 200. Call it whatever you want. Fun fact. Not too many people know that.
Questions?
Where's Will? Is you Will?
You're next, Will.
We're going to be here until Will. Ask me about my jacket or something. I don't know. What time did I wake up?
Hello. Hello. I have a question. It's kind of a cliche one, but if you could go back to a younger version of yourself and give yourself a piece of advice or something, what would it be?
I would go back. Being an introvert, was really hard. So this was uncomfortable for me at some level. I would reach out. I would reach out to more people and just say, hey, you got 5 minutes? Just even if it's any of your professors or Rob or somebody else, do you have like 5 minutes just to talk about, what my life, not necessarily life, but I have this idea. And you'd be surprised. when we hired one of our very first CFOs, my mentor said, "I'll do the interview for you, Mike. I'll do it for you." So we're sitting down in front of this guy, my age, at the time he's 30, and Brian asked him, there are 3 steps of, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember, in your work life. One is you're learning, you're gaining knowledge of the business. 2 is you're growing within that business. And 3 is you're in it for the money. And, so look, I am like an expert. I know what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go to wherever I can make $100,000 or $1 million a year instead of working for, one area. And I interrupted him at the end. After we got done, I go, Brian, there's a 4th, and that's what you are doing right now, and that's mentoring. So if you think about it, find a job, learn about whatever that is in that business, grow within it, become an expert, and maybe that's part of a question you'll get after this. But then you're looking to just make as much money. Don't try to make as much money as you can. Not that that's wrong. Learn the business, because once you learn it, that's forever. You can take that to your next job, and eventually you'll be an expert at whatever that is. Pool cover service, right? Who would have thought? And then you can take that and go to the next level.
A lot of the assignments we do in entrepreneurship classes, or really, and even some of the leadership classes, you're really trying to gain expertise. I mean, you're trying to learn the skills and tools that'll help you be successful, and that's a good foundation. So, thinking about Mike and some of the things that he's given you a lot of really good stuff. You just pour yourself into it. Whatever you decide to do, you just go all in. And when you said go to your professors or go to people to talk about life or to talk about next steps, like we actually crave that as faculty members, but the questions we get are more about, I need to turn my assignment in late. Here's why I wasn't in class. Like, we actually want real conversations with you. So take that advice to heart. Will, you're up.
We got Will.
I thought of one. Okay, so you talked about that book, that Creating Competitive Advantage book. I just wanted to know, like, if you had to pick like a chapter, maybe like a favorite quote or message that you got out of that book, what message would that be?
So that creating competitive advantage, something that you do that no one else can, or something you can say. Janie Smith, who wrote the book, spoke at our last season kickoff. I've read it a couple times. I use a pencil, again, right throughout the whole book. But one of the things that came out from that was, remember I said we do international sales? You guys remember that? From that book, you're supposed to come up with like really quotes. One of my quotes is sayings, 100% of our international sales are from word of mouth. And everyone has that same reaction, like, wow, right? Now, we have not made one trip internationally to get business, but it's referrals from people within the United States that we made relationships with that now we sell in Israel, New Zealand, Canada, Cyprus, all over these worlds, all from just relationships that we had built up or my team had built up.
Okay,
Well
one last question. Yeah? You're always in the front row. Yeah, you're a little quiet.
Come
okay.
up afterward. I'll talk to you.
Someone's wanting to start hire. Oh, okay. So as someone who's wanting to start a business, working for your parents and having that experience and then getting fired from them, I guess, was that easier? And did that make you want to start that business, or did you have another business in mind before you started working for them?
Yeah, that's a good question. That first domino was tipped over. I talk about a lot of dominoes, and the first person that tipped that domino for me to be an entrepreneur was my parents firing me, right? There was an event. It wasn't me I wonder if I can start a business. So that's part of going through and getting a job potentially and finding out what is out there, finding what you like. and then saying, okay, well, if I like this, and for me it was pool covers because I had done it since I was 14, then you start thinking, well, how could we do something in this area, whatever that is, better? Or what are the, I hate doing this at anything, whatever it is. And I don't know how else to answer that, but I would say start with a job that you like, try to get, and build a relationship with somebody in that world now. Whatever that job, let's say Starbucks or something, find somebody at Starbucks that you can build a relationship with. Hey, I'm interested in doing this at some point, and then going from there.
Okay, so 8 speakers. I think this was, we've been doing this a while, and this semester was pretty phenomenal. I hope you agree. And I think Mike was a great way to cap it off. It takes a village to do something like this. There's, to Mike's point, there are so many details. There's the camera crew so that we capture these. That's a lot of work on setup, and they're dedicated, so thank you to our camera crew. The setup for the student center, the ballroom, every week, I think this is a great venue. I think it works out really well. Heather, my colleague, who we've covered for each other. You can imagine doing 8 of these would be a lot by yourself, and so we've tag teamed. And I'm going to really miss you, Heather. This is our last week together in this capacity. But it's been a fun run this semester. Candy on our team, our GAs. Jordan's been here doing the poll EVs every week, or every speaker. And Faith and Clay have also been helpful, running things over, taking care of things. And then think about our speakers, finally, because, it gets tight if you have to listen to us talk all the time. Yeah, we know it's nice to mix it up and hear from different experiences, different perspectives. But this is a commitment. Mike didn't just magically teleport here today. He had to drive here, he had to park, he had to spend his precious time here, just like every speaker has. So thank you, Mike, for that. Thank you for investing in our students. It's meaningful. And I hope you all enjoyed it. And we have a little gift bag here for Mike. If you're wondering, why didn't Jennifer get one? Well, Jennifer's here every semester, so we always give her stuff, she gives us stuff. But thank you, Mike. And I know we talked about the Greatness book, and there's an extra copy in there for you to give away, along with some other little things. So thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it. If you're in Dr. Dixon's class, Jordan's going to fire up the poll everywhere right now. My class, you know the drill at this point. Oh, hold on. Don't move. Don't move. We have one thing left to do. It's a tradition. We don't want to burn it on the last one, right? So we're going to do our selfie. And, you got 2 guys in their 50s here, so it's always a challenge, right?
Hey,